This is your Frontier opening pair for the second market day in the month of November. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursday. Let's get the show going through a number of the African markets that we cover for you on a daily basis. The Nigerian stock market continued its roller coaster. 1.4 trillion naira in market capitalization gain for the first three sessions this week. No thanks, or thanks. Yes, thanks to these earnings that we're getting from the banking sector, from the industrial goods, from NTL, Airtel Africa. Then you talk about the cement companies, Lafarge, Boa Cement, the biggest cement maker, Dangote. Then, of course, in the consumer goods space. So it's all earnings coming through, including agro-allied companies such as Presco, PLC. Those numbers are rallying the Nigerian market up 2% on Wednesday. The market was up 1.6%. On Tuesday, I started the week with 1.45%. So we're seeing the new psychological index for the Nigerian exchange at 70,581, one of the hottest in history, not even the 2008 market rally before it busted in the first quarter of that year. So that's the roller coaster that we've seen here. Investors binging on stocks right now as we look at the index return for the Nigerian market at a roaring 37% since the year started. That's inflation beating inflation about 28%. If you invested in the market in January, you're head above the water of inflation as we speak. But let's take it to BRVM, which was closed for Wednesday, 208.88. The Egyptian market down by 0.5%. The Nairobi stock market is yet to find back its footing, still below in the water by 0.5%. And the resources yesterday took a bit of a hit on the GSE, but the market managed a 0.34% because the industrials and the financials were in the green territory. The rand is also appreciating. It went up 0.12% yesterday and now recovering better today on the Fed announcement by the U.S. Central Bank keeping interest rates unchanged, the Fed fund rate, and Jerome Powell signaling that perhaps this could be the end of the rate hiking cycle by the world's number one central bank. So take it down. Let's look at the East Africa's big story is going to come through around some of the biggest economic news from countries within the East African corridor. Of course, we got a couple of headlines from that region with the Kenya looking at KenGen. That is the Kenya's power generating company listed on the NSE, looking at a relationship with Malawi and Tanzania. Uganda inflation came in lower, 22.4% reading against 2.7 in the month of September. October inflation for East Africa's biggest economy quickened, so 6.9% in September. That's roughly 7%. Not so much good news for President Ruto's administration because fuel prices is soaring. Kenya's October consumer prices are that's 6.9%. Year-on-year estimate was 6.7%. Let's see, I keep those numbers in mind. Let's get on to the West Africa footprints. What's making the headlines? Nigeria's factory PMI for the month of October, which is an independent data from Stanbic IBTC, went into contraction of 49.1 in October. That's lower than 51.1 that we saw in September, and that put a stop to that 6 straight months of steady expansion that we saw in Nigeria's industrial activity. October came in bucking that trend. And a fresh $26.5 million has been put together for Nigeria, Kenya, and Uganda by the UK's development finance company, the agency, the BI, which is the British International Investment. The announcement was made in Lagos on Wednesday. And that's been powered through AFEX, which is that Nigerian headquartered commodity trading platform with operations in a number of African countries. BII is celebrating its marking its 75th anniversary of doing business, not just in Nigeria, but across the African continent. In the meantime, not so good news from venture capital reports that deals for Africa went down by 36% in the third quarter, July to September, and that's according to the African Venture Capital Association. MTN Ghana reporting its first 9 months period this year, net income of about 2.78 billion, just a few notches above the figure a year ago. Moody's has assigned a negative outlook to Niger Republic. That is expected, considering the recent military incursion into the political affairs of the West African country north of Nigeria. And Cape Verde Central Bank raises interest rate to 1.25% from 1%. Those are some headlines from across West Africa. Let's take it up to Southern Africa and roll that up with Rand stronger this morning around 18.49 to the American dollar. The morning after the U.S. led the Fed fund rate after yesterday's meeting. Those announcements came yesterday evening from Jerome Powell. The National Treasury in South Africa expecting South Africa's real GDP growth to slow down to 0.8%. A nail-biting midterm budget announcement released yesterday by Enoch Godongwana, the South Africa's finance minister, to the parliament, saying the deficit is rising steadily for Ramaphosa's administration in South Africa, and the economy has not much time left to rein in its fiscal imbalance. South Africa are missing revenue target by 57 billion rand. Thereabout. Those were some of the numbers presented to the parliament by the finance chief on Wednesday. Zimbabwe is cutting its 2024 economic growth forecast of 3.6% from a bigger and ambitious 5.3%. And Mozambique Central Bank decided to leave its interest reference rate for credit at 24.10%. And Moody's Investor Services have affirmed Botswana's Power Corporation's BAA3 credit rating. That's good news. Take it to North Africa, where Egypt is reporting net foreign assets deficit widening by 27.5 billion Egyptian pounds in September. But the good news is that the country's success completed its $5.3 billion of refining projects. In the meantime, Libya's Africa investment portfolio receives offer to operate petroleum products factories. And finally, in North Africa, Tunisia still depends on the banks and public institutions to finance government operations via treasury bills. Total bill sales to the Central Bank of Tunisia was north of 2.5 billion dinars in the month of October, and those data were brought out by the central bank as at the end of October the 28th. And those are your early numbers, economic and markets data for today, Thursday, the 2nd of November. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you soon